Cary Harrison with you, and welcome to our Cary Harrison Files. This is the unexpurgated, untainted, uncircumcised version of what we would do normally on broadcast radio and public radio, but we don't no longer have the impediment, the blanket, the bludgeon of the FCC, so we can talk openly and frankly about the things that matter and affect you and affect me. And of course, your comments will come up on the screen, and we're looking forward to having a deep dive. Let me bring up the great Rory Penland right now. Rory, of course, man of 1,000 voices, now actually 1,004 voices.
Welcome in the avenue. Welcome.
Welcome, yes. And also the great, and when I say great, I mean large, Renee, 800 pounds.
At least.
She's got a video filter on right now, which is slimming her. That is a great piece of technology.
It's great.
It's really, I don't know if you've seen The Whale, Brandon Fraser's great work of art, but really that's what's happening. But this AI is making me look a certain way, and I'm very proud of that. My AI is becoming my own identity.
Doing real time. Do you know, I remember Brendan Fraser as Tarzan, and I have to say that was soft porn in the movie theater. I don't know if you saw. Do you remember that movie?
Georgia? Yeah, I do. I'll never forget it.
George of the Jungle. No, I think it was. Yeah, it was George of the Jungle.
Yes.
I mean, god damn, that was just wrong. It was just naked back and forth.
No, it was right, Cary. It was right. It felt right.
It felt
in
right.
all the right places.
And John Cleese is the ape.
And then he opted for like a different look, which was very disappointing. He was also in a great movie called Gods and Monsters, where he played a pool boy and ended up having a romance with an older gay guy. And, you know, everyone thought, well, here he is. Now we know who he is. It turns out it's not who he is. He's what's called an actor. Like, I'm just playing someone. I'm not playing with them.
He's not an actual pool boy. You can't actually hire him to come.
That's correct. That's what it's about. You can hire him to clean your pool.
That's what's so disappointing.
And it's unfortunate, really.
Yes, that would cost millions. Well,
and he doesn't fight mummies either.
No.
Well,
we don't know.
We don't know. Actually, he's never commented about that. It could be the case.
It's possible.
What we're going to do right now is we're going to delve into, it's sort of like a part two of an interview that I did a few weeks ago with a congressional candidate from San Francisco area. San Francisco is, I think it likes to think that it's the progressive capital of Earth. I think LA likes to think it's the progressive capital of Earth. I know that the LA people do not feel highly about the San Franciscan people, and the San Francisco people look at LA as shit.
It's a lot
That's
of
on a good day. Yeah. I mean, because LA has like no books. The last bookstore was closed years ago. And why would anyone in LA ever bother reading a book when you could have a coffee table book? You have one of those, mostly photos. And LA people
like the pictures.
They like the pictures.
You're like you were stroking a cat there. You seem like a very Bond villain.
Like, yes. I'm channeling my inner Ernst Stavro Blofeld. And another time we'll talk about Ian Fleming and really break down his characters, because I got to know a lot about those. It was fascinating.
And my favorite part to share is Bianca's backstage right now laughing her tushy off. She loves this conversation. It is resonating with her as a San Francisco.
Well, and you know, we couldn't really do this on the public radio because I would have just gotten pulled into the office and bludgeoned and cattle prodded. I would have my genitals brought out, each testicle singly put in a small nutcracker, and the vice turned.
Oh, don't do it. No, don't do it, Harrison.
Eyeballs exothermically popping out and swinging on the optic nerves until I said, no, I don't want that.
No.
That's why we're here. Yes.
Yes, Rory.
For Bianca, she says, for that's just a Tuesday. Yes. All right. So we're going to bring her on. She's running for Congress. This is just the short nutshell. We're talking about universal health care for all. What is universal health care, you wonder? What is that? What is that? That's socialist. That sounds socialist to me. Yes. Just like having a fucking fire department. everyone gets a fire
or a
department.
police
Why?
department or
Because
education.
when Rory's house catches fire and there's Renee and his sparks come flying off his roof onto her roof and burn her house down, she also gets to have a fire department. Yes, that's what that means. It's okay. And if we did a plebiscite right now in the United States, in the current United States right now, plebiscite, a national vote, thumbs up, thumbs down, maybe using an app so that people could do it. And the question was, if all white people only, could have free, unlimited, all-you-could-eat medical care taken out of their taxes with no extra cost. You go to the doctor every day, brain transplants, lung, bionic legs, limbs, whatever you need. Free, unlimited, all-you-can-eat health care, like in Europe, where you get a bill of 0 cents no matter what they do and how often you go. Would you vote if only white people, coast to coast, had this free, unlimited health care out of their taxes, no extra cost? They would vote overwhelmingly yes. But the reason we don't have it, it's racist. Because it's racist. This country would never in a million years. People, listen, here in the South, where I'm sitting right here today, if people find out their doctor was just dealing with a Latino or a African-American before touching Mildred as she comes in her cane and her sensible shoes, her stockings half rolled down her thigh and her wig hanging over one eye, box of Domino's pizza crunched under one arm and a can of Schlitz crunched up with her long red fingernails where the polish is chipped off and you can see what's underneath. And she's standing there shaking in front of that doctor. And he looks at her and goes, "I don't want to touch you, honey." She goes, "But look what you just touched." He goes, "You're worse." But see, doctors can't say that because they have to play golf and it's tea time. Speaking of which, let's bring on Bianca Von Krieg, and we'll let her tell in her own words. She's running for Congress to replace Nancy Pelosi's seat. Nancy Pelosi, she's got lots to say about Nancy Pelosi, which you just say the name and everyone reacts. Most people don't like Nancy Pelosi, yawn. No, they just, it's like Hillary Clinton, and suddenly the whole room lights up. They all have an opinion. But this one wants to do what would be called progressive things, like a Green New Deal, Medicare for all, codifying Roe v. Wade. That would mean, Renee, that Jim, my neighbor, who you can't see, who I just circumcised his cat 10 minutes ago, so they're in the back dealing with that right now. But that means that Jim could not chase you around the block with a speculum.
Exactly.
Because you were pregnant. And he was going to handle that. Although if he worked for the government, he could do that because the government owns your baby factory. You do not have agency anymore.
No, I'm just a product.
You're a product. Yes, you're a product.
My product is a product.
Yes, your product is a product. And Walgreens and CVS now do have the pill form of an abortion pill, but it's not legal in the state of Florida, which also doesn't allow people to drive in the left lane under 55 miles an hour, nor does it allow any medicine at all for transgender people in the state of Florida. It is illegal, forbidden, a third degree felony, actually, for anybody who is gay to go to a doctor and try to get medical care, even if it's a heart attack. You can now be legally turned away. It has nothing to do with Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, federal laws. This is states pulling at states' rights things until it gets sued and finds out, oops, it was illegal afterwards. But by then, 5 years have passed and it's normal. And the rednecks are goddamn happy that it finally happened. Shit. We've been waiting 48 years for this to happen, and finally they do. Problem is, I went in there to get medicine, and they looked at me, and they didn't know what the hell they were looking at. They said, "Jesus Christ," and they denied me medicine. Can you believe it? Well, this is how it always goes, isn't it?
Again, fantastic accent work.
Cary Harrison, the man of 1,001 voices.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, let's be good fellows and fellettes, and let's bring in Bianca Von Krieg, who is running for Congress from San Francisco, who has a wonderful sense of humor. I recall in the beginning of our other one, she pointed out that she was comfortable, I think, under like a waterfall of Louis Vuitton luggage. And I thought, okay, I like this.
Yes,
I can vote that way.
always shoes. I enjoy being financially exploited by high-end shoe stores. Sometimes that's my one vice.
So
But,
Bianca,
yeah, back, Cary.
we're going to ask you to use your bar voice because your mic, wherever your microphone is hidden somewhere, yell at it. Yeah, just really just beat the shit out of it. Just pound those vocal cords. Really get that diaphragm up and just plosives right into it, and it will be happy.
How's this? Is this better?
Yes,
Beautiful.
excellent. Yes.
So beautiful.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit. I know you wanted to make some corrections on some things that I'd observed. The conservative media likes to put you on way more than they like to put me on. They like to put me on a gallows. They like to put me on a rack. They like to put me on, but never do I get ever an invitation. No, never. So that part was where you and I were like, I didn't have the clarity of why they seem, because as far as I know, those bastards do not think that transgender is cool. They're not like lining their kids up to go play baseball with somebody that was born a biological X, but is now a that. That seems to drive them crazy. Somehow you've broken into their world. That's a coup.
Well, they like me, for the, first and foremost, because I'm running against Nancy Pelosi. And the one thing that they prefer more than hating Nancy Pelosi is liking me and having somebody who can take her place. We've worked together with them up here on a number of issues. We actually worked on the recall of Newsom. We got 500,000 Democrats to sign the recall of Gavin Newsom. That's 1/3 of the total needed, with the intention that we could get in a progressive candidate. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but the electoral research shows that it could have. Now, the other thing that they're excited about up here is universal basic income, which shifts the responsibility of caring for the employee from the singular employer to the plurality of society, which benefits everyone. And we pay for that not by raising middle-class taxes. We actually want to give them significant economic relief. But we pay for that with a wealth tax. 77 of California's 156 billionaires live in this city. There's no wealth tax, and we have like the highest homeless rates around the country. We can solve these problems, but they don't want to do it. The Republicans know that no Republican gets elected anything, even dog catcher in San Francisco, which isn't even a thing. And
well, speaking of dog catcher, so let's just take Donald Trump, because he is back in the news again for having been so exciting. We have now learned from the SCOTUS, or SCROTUS, as I like to call them. That's the Supreme Court of the United States, for those of you who aren't familiar with SCOTUS is, but I throw an R in there because it's easier to pronounce. Renee, you have legal training. You would agree.
I believe it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And Rory, you as a man of 1,000 words and 1,000 voices.
No, he's terrible. He's always nasty to me. He never tells the truth. He's just terrible. It's the typical media, making scrotum jokes about me.
So SCROTUS has decided that Donald Trump, that each president is allowed one insurrection. Yes. Now, if Donald Trump he's allowed, now is that per presidency, per term, per lifetime? But you're allowed one insurrection. How many does it take where we have a bad outcome? With the successful insurrection wouldn't be called one, because it would just be called the new normal. So this bothers me. And at least Bianca Von Krieg, if you're in there, I imagine you'll probably like smack a few of those people in Congress around and say, can you believe this?
Oh, we got a big
shame, Senator.
Huge smack list.
Smack Matt Gaetz for me, please. When you get the chance.
He's on that, as with many of our party. We have a lot of people that we're gonna try and nail, and that's the whole point of going up there. It's not just about talking about these things. We want to get them to a vote and find out who the people are, who the real dinos are, and call them out on it. Because again, Nancy Pelosi had 3 supermajorities to do things like codify Roe v. Wade and pass the Affordable Care Act, colloquially known as the Obamacare Act, Obamacare. And she's had nearly 4 decades in Congress. She hasn't done anything but line her pockets, as we've seen recently with NVIDIA, where she made $1 million on insider stock trading. And we should also point out that NVIDIA's earnings rose on news that they created a special AI chip designed to surveil the Chinese people. So she profited on the misery and suffering of the Chinese people.
But is that considered unethical for Congress nowadays? I mean, I remember when they were supposed to declare this and be nice boys and girls and not go on people's yachts without disclosing it. Then they got, well, if they just disclose it, it's okay. And then with Citizens United, you can hand gold bullion to a senator, but not directly. I would have to hand gold bullion, like let's say 40 pounds of gold bullion. I'd have to hand it to Renee. Renee, then Senator Rory at the top there. Renee would have to hand it to Senator Rory. I cannot hand it directly to Senator Rory.
There has to be a middleman.
Yeah, there has to be a middleman, and that makes it all okay.
And then you can stitch it up in the jacket.
Then just wash your hands of the whole.
Well, we're gonna change what the new normal is. We're gonna change what it is to be okay. All right. Polls show that the stock trading ban that is being talked about in Congress as the Pelosi Act is incredibly popular, as is term limits. And I'm the only Democrat to sign the pledge for term limits. 83% of Americans want term limits. We have it at every level of government here in California. Nancy Pelosi opposes that for obvious reasons. So this keeps new blood coming in. I mean, I know there's some age talk going around here, but it helps to bring in new ideas. I'm also the only Democrat to re-engineer the Green New Deal.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you're against old, white, bald men running the entire nation? Are you telling me that when I watched halftime this year at Super Bowl and didn't see a single white person, but saw everybody else dancing and running around, that the old, white, bald men that run this country, somehow they weren't represented there?
You don't like Mitch McConnell?
I'm going to say that.
Oh my goodness. He doesn't like Mitch McConnell.
Well, he's stepping down, so
yeah, by his own.
He finally called it.
Yeah,
it's called gravity. He's just leaning forward, and he will fall down on his own. So Bianca, let's talk a little bit about the readiness of these Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the Matt Gaetzes and the Donald Trumps, who really don't believe in anything except if there's money in your pocket, he wants it, and he'll come up with a way to take it and swindle. Like we've got a swindler in chief. We've got P.T. Barnum, better than P.T. Barnum. I mean, this is just outrageous. So you're a transgender person. They help us understand how they're going to be okay with that. Like, what's the plan here?
The plan for they seem to be okay with me. I've been asked out by a number of Republicans on the Hill. I think that the issue they're having is there seems to be a forwarding of the political lines that they're taking some issue with. But I think by and large, they're mostly ambivalent towards us. But again, they are very happy to have, somebody like me running against Nancy Pelosi, and the leading electoral minds have us going to the general election. So the first transgender woman could be taking Nancy Pelosi to the general election. And that's going to be a fun race.
I still don't. I mean, these people are vociferous about who uses what can.
Yeah, I can't see Jim Jordan going along with this.
I'm not saying everybody's on board, but the thing is that we've been talking down to them for generations, for decades, and looking down our noses at us, and that doesn't really seem to be working. There's over 80 million of them in the country, and
who's the them?
MAGA Republicans, Walkos, whatever you want to call them. People who are basically ignorant and don't understand a lot of what's happening in the world, and look towards, these unfortunate demagogues in the form of Marjorie Greene and Matt Gaetz. and get a bad result. The only thing that really matters in this political race is money. Money solves 99.9% of socioeconomic problems. 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 40% can't afford a $500 financial setback. And the bottom 80% of America owns just 7% of its wealth. This has to change. Everything else is just noise. Renaming schools, whatever else, whatever the distraction they keep coming up with, don't let them do it. Bring it back to the money. That's what cost them the 2022 midterms. They were in full control. The Democrats were in full control. It was their race to lose. And they tried to make it about something else because they didn't want to do right by their party and by the nation and give them economic relief, which polls overwhelmingly showed even when it left abortion as a distant third as what Americans wanted, and they wouldn't give it to them. There's this kind of contempt. We saw this with Biden too, when this reporter asked him, look, there, you said it yourself. There's other Democrats who come in and do this job. Why don't you step aside and let them do it? There's this contempt. It must be me. I'm in control. I have to stay in control. It's not about helping people. And the people who aren't about helping people really need to go. We need to do it now. And even if you're somebody who has appreciation for Pelosi, you know, we need to help her do the right thing and retire. You know, the last thing we want is some sort of a Dianne Feinstein or Mitch McConnell episode.
Although she did look good on the gurney in the end.
Yeah, well, there's that, you know.
So here's a question, and this is one that we talked about before. The Democrats, we all go back to George W. Bush, and Swinging Dick Cheney, and all of these guys, and we remember. Go ahead, Rory. I know you're just itching.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it in person. I just glad you brought me up. Thank you. So
we go back, and we remember that when Nancy Pelosi became speaker, we thought the speaker wears Prada, like we're going to have this kick-ass, and we didn't see it. And today, you know, the worst we get, this is the worst. Chuck Schumer will walk in after something so outrageous has happened. He'll pull his glasses down to the end of his nose like this and look up and say, I am terribly disappointed. Now, if he were a pearl clutcher, if he were wearing pearls, he could clutch his pearls. Let me give you the friggin' definition of
disappointment. You don't know what he does on his Tuesday nights. Okay, let's not.
Yeah. Let me give you the definition of disappointment. Disappointing is when your summer cottage in Nantucket, where the maid has not changed the sheets in 2 weeks before your new guests get there. That's disappointing. I'm disappointed.
That is
no
disappointing.
fresh sheets. Now, the stuff that goes on is so outrageous. Now, we can hammer, and let's say John Duncan, in a perfect world, they'd remove Scientology's tax-exempt status and use the massive amount of money recouped from that to facilitate funding issues such as those you're raising tonight. Huh, there it is. Imagine.
Well, I think we get a lot more done with a wealth tax. We want to divest the billionaire class altogether. We'll still have rich people, okay? There'll still be millionaires, just not billionaires. Okay, that's too far. There's an Oxfam stat here that since 2020, the 5 richest people in the world doubled their worth, while 5 billion people were sent into poverty. And when you're dealing with an $8 billion person world, that's pretty substantial. So we have to go after the money, and we have to redistribute the wealth now. It's not communism, it's just a correction.
Yeah, I think we can agree that there has to be some kind of adjustment. It used to be called regulation. And here's why you regulated. Because somebody was naughty. In other words, you get 100 people in a village. One is the tailor, one is the hairdresser, one is the this, that one cuts the coconuts, this one lances the anal warts, this one, you know, everyone, it's a community, it's a village. Everyone is helped, right, Rory?
Rory loves the anal warts.
Never lanced an anal wart.
A Ronald Reagan anal wart lancer, that's obvious.
We let our anal warts trickle down.
So everyone is busy helping everyone else. Fact. Then there's always a Rumsfeld, a Wolfowitz, a Dick Cheney that comes in and goes, this is great. I read Lord of the Flies. These people are schmucks. I'm going to just take all the power and then I'm going to charge them double, triple retail or take away all the goods and services. That's why you have regulation, because there's always a naughty person. It's not like you're bored on a Tuesday and you're going to come up with weird laws that don't need to happen. It's because you must regulate industries so people don't steal from other people. So now we're in this deregulated Wild West. We're all wondering, well, how do we end up with billionaires with dirt floors, marble floors, pharaohs, and the rest of us are pushing those goddamn 200-ton granite blocks up the side of a hill to build the burial ground for, Melania's toenail fungus. It's outrageous. Regulate, baby.
Yeah, and the way to imagine it is particularly apt, is that if we were having this conversation a few days ago, and I would ask, what time is it? You would say 4:30, and I would say, what date? And you would give me, like, let's say the 28th, and I would say, well, you're off about a day in terms of our time in the solar system, and that's because we didn't have a leap day yet. We didn't have a correction mechanism. Nobody would argue that we should have a Gregorian calendar system without a leap year. We need these periodic corrections to keep the system fair and balanced, pure and simple. Doesn't mean going all the way to the other end of the pendulum with communism or some other nonsense like that. It just means correcting the system, and it means giving economic relief to the people who need it most. That's why UBI is so popular.
And yet, as you say that, the Trumpkins and the MAGA folks and the GOP, not the one I grew up with. I grew up with the Eisenhower flavored, then it became the Nixon flavored, and then Nixon gave us the EPA. Can you imagine? Which has been defunded. The fucking EPA. Like, no, we're not going to put a tailpipe in your classroom and rev up the engine in the back because, no, the EPA. No, it's not okay for you to drink piddle. Not okay. Yes, Richard Milhouse Nixon gave us not only the EPA, but OSHA. So when I'm in the factory working, making these beautiful Walmart quality coffee things, and I lose a couple of fingers, I actually could get Band-Aids because of Richard Milhouse Nixon. Creepy Richard Milhouse Nixon. That naughty, naughty man.
I resent the fact that you call me creepy.
And that's what a Republican was. So today it's a outer space kind of creature. And today they do want communism. They really do. Vladimir Putin to them with no shirt on, riding on horseback, clutching his foreskin while cattle prodding himself up a bum, shoving Skippy peanut butter jars, riding around trying to canter now. So he goes up and down on the Skippy jars. That's what they all want. Seriously.
Now you're turning us all on, Cary. You know what? For people watching the Cary Harrison Files, we have something for everyone. There's something for everyone.
But I'm not kidding.
That was a big one.
I have never seen my father, who was a John Birch Republican, and that's a special breed. It's like makes MAGA look like, I don't know, a chocolate bar.
Maggots.
Yeah, like maggots. John Birch Republican, he was in the Air Force. He was at a SAC base in 1957, Strategic Air Command, which flew 24 hours a day, nuclear-laden B-52s circling the Earth. In fact, so important were these 24-hour circling B-52s laden with thermonuclear warheads, they never landed. For years, they fueled the midair just in case. My father liked to drink. How much did he like to drink? Increments of swimming pools. And so he was in the officers club and got everyone squiffed all the time. This is before something called fail-safe. Fail-safe means when you decide to drop a nuclear bomb, Bill up in the cockpit has to open a ring binder. Then he has to take the key from the navigator. And then on the ground over here, everyone needs matching keys. Put them in 3, 2, 1, click, 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 click. Then you have codes. You have to spin a dial. I don't know what you have to do. Tickle somebody's nuts. You got to go through all of these just crazy hoops to be able to drop the bomb. But in the 1950s,
you just let Slim Pickens write her down.
That's exactly right.
That's my favorite.
In the 1950s, there is no fail-safe yet. So my father gets on the horn and tells these guys it's time to take out the commies. Let's just do it. There you are. You're in Finland. You could be over Moscow in a matter of hours. Just dump your payload. All you have to do is push that. It's a sort of a joystick type thing. Push it forward, and the bomb bay doors will simply open up, just like.
Dump your payload with the joystick. Really?
Yes, dump your payload. Just dump your payload.
It's just getting everyone excited. This is how you sell TV shows, people.
Nobody cared when I was talking about UBI, but everybody loves somebody's scrotum getting whacked around. Like
UBI or
UBS. Yeah, someone smack it around the scrotus.
Let me just finish this important story here. So here's what happens. He tells the guy to open the payload, drop the bombs, and the pilot balks. He balked. He was like, well, I really didn't think we were really ever going to do that. And the pilot waited and waited. And by then, I think my father got dragged off the mic back into the bar, and that was that. And they realized they needed better protocols. My point is, this is why you have regulations. This is why you have fail-safe. This is why you have guardrails, because there are lunatics out there that get a hold of the controls and they run the show. So let's jump over to grooming, because Rory had a situation with his own daughter, different in some way. But you were telling me something that schools were. Do you remember this, Rory? Nope, no memory of it.
I'm pulling a blank here.
Right. Well, let's define what this is first.
The MAGAs,
scrotum on the brain. That's the problem, Rory.
Yeah, they're all about, we can't have these grooming in schools, and
do you know what that is, Rory? Do you know what that is? Does that mean like brushing your hair? Like no dental flossing during math, kiddies? No.
Just please tell me what it is. It's, telling them they can be whatever they want to be, right?
So, but grooming in this context means that the schools are actually they're looking to accomplish the objective of making children choose transgender against their own natural, authentic wishes, like trying to put a preference for LGBTQ plus, right? Like Bianca, maybe
the Jordans and Marjorie Taylor Greens describe it. Yes, man.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. The technical term is called proselytizing, and so we want to make sure that there's a line between being supportive and proselytizing. I know that there are, I get calls and emails every week from trans people around the country saying, should I transition? What's it like? All this kind of thing. And, it really depends. I mean, I would tell you in San Francisco, if you're going to do it, you better have a lot of money and be prepared to go it by yourself, unfortunately, because the support just isn't there. But we certainly want schools to be a supportive place for children to learn and grow and figure out who they are without any interference from anybody. So I want to keep that safe, and I want to keep that sacred. I think the Republicans have taken a few anecdotal incidents out of context and exploited them for their usual fear tactics, which we see with Marjorie Taylor Greene. And we really shouldn't respond to Marjorie Taylor Greene, because again, only a fool takes on a fool's argument. And we're essentially trying to have an academic argument with a spin teacher. So maybe we'll just move on from Marjorie Taylor Greene. But yeah, we need to keep schools as a safe place for sure.
And I think they are. I think maybe the first thing we should have in schools is something called education. And this is where a teacher would walk in and distribute knowledge. Yes, actually recycle the knowledge that they have. But instead, there are guns and God knows what goes on in there. This I hear from just regular people. There's virtually no education going on because the teacher is now forced to be a babysitter. All this as a result, by the way, of defunding education. Education being paramount out, according to our founding fathers, according to Tommy Jefferson, even Ben Franklin, when he wasn't running his whorehouse in Philadelphia, referring to himself as the world's greatest whoremaster, which can be found in the Franklin Family Bible, by the way, which I've seen. He was quite something. But not to talk about Benjamin Franklin, which of course is my favorite topic. Let's just talk about what's supposed to go on in the schools. You're supposed to have education. But you go back to Rockefeller, and this is around 1901, and he wrote a white paper on you need to get rid of liberal arts. You have to stop teaching Greek. You have to stop teaching math and science because people will start to have analytical thought. They will be able to understand what they're being told and not believe everything. How do you punch in and out of a factory, punch on a clock, when you actually think there's something else you could be doing? You need to, like the British, know your station, where you were born, and know you can never, ever, ever break that glass ceiling. And starting that under King Ronald I, we started to remove the wonderful things that were happening in Bianca's home state of California. There was free, very good education. You could go to UCLA or UCLA. UCLA here is uncultured Lower Alabama. But where Bianca lives, it's actually a university with a mowed lawn and some nice bricks and ivy growing. And there you could get a first-rate Berkeley. Jesus Christ, Berkeley. Wow. You could go to Berkeley and have the whole thing paid for. This is how Silicon Valley was born. Ding, ding, ding. Free education in this huge state. Geniuses get born, they get paid for, and then they contribute back to society. I'm not saying that the great Zuckerberg is contributing back to society, but he is contributing.
But he will. We're going to get him.
Yes.
We're going to.
Well, tell us about that.
We're going to get him and his $100 billion. Not kidding. That's his net worth as of last August. $100 billion. That's $1,000 million 100 times over. We're going to get that money. We're going to divest him and we're going to bring it back into society. That's the thing we have to be looking for in our candidates, not the noise they're making with transgender people or abortion or anything else. We have to go after the money because our society is on the verge of crumbling. We have to fix these problems. The Democrats haven't been doing, I think I said it last time, I got Steve Bannon to call for a wealth tax. The needle is starting to move and we have to push it forward or our society.
That is his nickname, the needle.
Yeah, let's call him that.
That's none of my business. I don't hang out in that bathhouse. So, Bianca, I understand you are from Österreich. Stimmt das?
Jawohl.
Sehr gut. Du warst dort geboren, ja?
Yeah, let's keep it in English here for Rory and everybody else.
For dumb Rory, who is
and most of Los Angeles is still reeling from your scrotum comment.
Why do you treat me this way?
But I mean, there's just so much. There's so much here. It's so maddening. When you want to do a wealth tax, and I missed whatever comment came up a minute earlier, and I apologize to whoever wrote it. It just came up. There it is. John says the entire world, apart from extreme right-wing Christians and Putin and Xi Jinping, is praying Trump doesn't get elected. Yeah, it's true. The U.S. is on the precipice. Sorry, there we go again. I'm with the neighbor circumcising the cat.
He said
Precipice of becoming a failed state. It's just so true. Yeah, it's so true. So how do you get into Congress and tell the people that own everything, that would be the billionaires that fund the politicians through Citizens United, those bags of gold bullion, raw diamonds pouring out, just pouring into into Renee's pocket, and then she scoops them out and puts them in Senator Rory's pocket. How do you convince them that they get taxed? And what's the threshold where the wealth tax stops? Like, is it 800 million, 870 million? Then you're no longer in that threshold. Like, how do you get them on?
We're working with our economic advisor, former Labor Secretary Robert Reich, and a professor at UC Berkeley on firming up those numbers. But right now, we're thinking of 9 digits of net worth or more. Why do they do that? Well, some of them are coming around, like Mark Benioff, the man behind Salesforce.com, who actually was in favor of a tax that we had on, I believe it's the top 10% of biggest tech firms in the city taxed, I forget what it was. We called it Proposition C. It took place in 2018. And that was to bring money for homeless services in San Francisco. So some of them are coming around on this. But yeah, it is asking, like, somebody who's addicted to heroin to cure themselves. we need a kind of greater intervention at work here. So we need people focused on what's important, on getting these things passed, and even saving some people from themselves, really. So some of them are getting on board. It's mostly people up here. But, we see a lot of evil happening, especially with the Ninth Circuit ruling recently on homeless sweeps here in San Francisco. They're now trying to challenge that in the Supreme Court, and they got their wish, and they got it fast-tracked. So I actually was one of the people who fought to protect that, because we were trying to force San Francisco to actually solve the problem and house people. They literally want to sweep them into the gutter right here in San Francisco, the progressive city. And I hear rumors of the same thing happening in Los Angeles. So we were trying to force the city to solve the problem, actually house people. And we have the money and resources to do it. There are 60,000 vacant units in the city of San Francisco. We don't need to build out more. We just need to put the money and the housing together and house these people like we should do for our society.
Now, that's going to upset Wall Street, because Wall Street has hedge fund managers who buy up entire blocks, acres of buildings, luxury apartments. They are also co-developers to take people out of single family houses, especially when they're beautiful 1920s craftsmen, tear them down, put up a 60-unit thing, and then leave the apartments empty. When you have all those empty apartments, you get to raise the rate of rent because there's still only that many apartments left. But now you have so many more, but they're not on the market, and you keep driving it up and up. Forcing habitation, like this, making a rule, regulation once again, that you're allowed to sit on an empty apartment for over a year. But if you can't do something with it, you got to do something with it.
Yeah, that's called a vacancy tax.
Yeah.
And, again, yeah, of course they're not going to like it, but here's the better question. Would they like a civil war even more? That would be extremely inconvenient and painful. Millions will probably die unnecessarily. We lost over 600,000 lives in the first Civil War. Maybe let's head that off. Money has been every empire since the beginning of time has failed, and it's for the same reason: greed and selfishness. We need to turn that around, and we need to change what's in our heart. And we need to work with other people who we may not necessarily like to get that done. Like I said before, and I'll say it again, the Republicans love universal basic income because it allows us to reimagine minimum wage and make small businesses more competitive. Right? Small businesses are the heart and soul of San Francisco neighborhoods, and I'm sure other cities will agree with that too. So we need to support them, and that's the way to do that, and that's why we're working with them.
Well, now when you've got universal basic income, that means everybody can go buy something. You no longer have the complete have-nots, which is a giant chunk of America. As you pointed out, people are $500 away from living on the same sidewalk that they are forbidden to live on, by the way. In LA, they refer to these now as tiny encampment villages, or TIVs. And if you live in a TIV, you can't have that. It's camping. So they ship you to a campsite, which is generally about 20 miles outside of town, called Lancaster, which is where the prison is, and dump you there. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's like what our governor, Ron DeSantis, does in Florida. You take the taxpayers' money here, you get a bunch of private jets, and you just fly them to another state, dump them off, and leave and come back. There, problem solved. Just relocate the issue.
Problem's not solved. It's just relocated, just like you said. We need to start solving our problems and eating our political vegetables. This is also the problem. This is also a significant problem in the root causes of crime. Okay, people keep saying there's no consequences up here. There are consequences. The thing is, they don't mean much to the people committing them, because when you look around every day and your life is 1 degree of separation from prison, you've got nowhere to go but up. All right, we need to put more carrot back into the system. And work it that way, instead of trying to create a police state, which will also fail for a host of different reasons. So we actually have to solve these problems, and that's what DAs like Chesa Boudin and Pamela Price and George Gascon down there, who is a transplant from up here. That's what we've all been trying to do. We're trying to say it's not on us to solve these problems. It's on the politicians to solve these problems. They're the ones who need to do that. And we're not going to step on people's rights to do that. We're not going to let you scapegoat these people anymore. We call that the weaponization. We call that the criminalization of poverty and the weaponization of crime. That's when it forces people against each other. It's like, these neighborhoods going, I'm sick of the crime. We got to get more cops in there. And that doesn't solve the problem. What solves the problem are social services like housing. That's what solves the problem. And
so are you saying that places like Norway and Switzerland and Germany, former Nazis, by the way, who have social services and retirement, no matter who you are, you get to retire and they'll pay for it. And you get medical care all the way to the finish line. And let's say you can't pay your rent, they pay it for you. That's what you paid those taxes for all those years. Are you saying that that people could live like Europeans and eat like organic food and have fresh water to drink and not shoot each other because they're so frustrated? And let's talk about the American public being responsible and accountable. This is not, it is abject government failure, but let's face it, we live in a fucked up culture. And when I say that, I mean it as a gerund. That way we know it's grammatically okay. I wasn't being offensive in any way. I was just using it in a way to emphasize my point here. This culture, LA, where I also live, where you drive to Rock and Roll Ralph's on Sunset Boulevard, you drive by these tiny encampment villages, homeless people barfing, vomiting, rats, cholera, disease, people tinkling in their own tents, leaving scumber in great piles, causing other animals and vermin to come in while you go shopping in the grocery store called Ralph's, which is Safeway in other parts, or Kroger, whatever it is. And the grocery store manager doesn't seem to have a problem with people living in excreta in his parking lot. In fact, the entire city of LA, 14 million people, doesn't seem to have a problem, except that homeless people are irritating. But it doesn't occur to them that they're all driving around in Range Rovers because somebody could see them. Nobody they'll ever meet, nobody they'll ever know, but somebody could see them in their delicate egos. Oh my God, my ego. I have to have a Range Rover. I have to have one so that I can go 3 miles an hour because the traffic is so bad, 20 lanes, 3 miles an hour in my Porsche, just in case. And I drive over the feet of homeless people. That's so fucked up. Those are assholes. You don't let people rot on your sidewalks. I don't care who you are, where you live, how much money or how little money you have. If you're a small business, it's very simple. Do you want someone vomiting on the front steps of your small business? No. Why? Because when a potential customer comes to buy something and they see that, they will never come back. Ever come back. So it's kind of common sense. What happened to the common sense in America?
Right. And that's exactly what I was just talking about up in San Francisco. That's how they try to drive a wedge between citizens. All right. Instead of doing the right thing, they simply put the problem back on the people. And a lot of businesses left. Macy's is leaving Union Square up here. I don't know if that made news down there. A number of department stores left because they refused to solve the problem. There's this kind of just abject contempt that the uniparty or deep state, or whatever you want to call it, has, that it's in control, and they penetrated the Democratic and Republican parties up here in Northern California too. It says, I refuse to solve the problem. I'm going to keep forcing the problem until it gets worse and worse, and I'll deal with the consequences later on if there are any. And the delusion that there aren't going to be any are not going to be any consequences are absolutely preposterous. There will be consequences, and they will be dire and terrible. And that's what we're heading to. So we need to not focus on fighting each other, putting neighbor against neighbor. We have to change the government. We have to fundamentally change it. Policing is not the solution. You're not going to arrest your way out of this. All right. These are serious problems that we have to solve, and they've been neglected for decades. And it's going to mean radical solutions to change these problems. We can't do incremental solutions to a problem that took decades to form and have it have any kind of serious impact in real time. So that's why we have to make these changes.
As we come to the end here, let's talk a little bit about the specter of Donald Trump once again being president. Now, he's a likable guy. If you know, I mean, I think he's awesome. And when I say awesome, I mean I am awe-stricken by him. He is my wet dream of a P.T. Barnum, of a Mr. Ringling's Big Top. He knows how to pick up a chair and get those lions to roar. He is a guy who can run at any woman anywhere in the world with his two fingers outstretched and run at full speed and grab them. Grab them, not say hello, not touch them on the shoulder, but just grab them by their genitalia, which I imagine is bad when you're in high heels. You could lose your balance, but you could sue him for falling on your rear end. I mean, it's so ripe for satire that it's ridiculous. If your dog catcher, which you don't have in San Francisco, you said anymore, I don't know where they have them, but I imagine they still do. If your dog catcher were a sexual creep and were running for dog catcher, nobody would vote for him. Nobody would vote for a sexual predator dog catcher. Nobody would vote for the garbage man for the same rules. But the president of the United States, e pluribus unum, somebody to replace any of it's so outrageous. Like, but when you're president, then you're Jeffrey Epstein level. Like, what president doesn't crave a 14-year-old cooch? Well, I don't. But like, am I in the wrong club that I don't
Not the
desire
president.
that?
Hey, let's make that very clear. You know, when you love you know.
I mean, I'm serious
But
here.
the thing we have to understand about Trump is that they're seeing it as a protest vote, okay, to the establishment and Democrats and Republicans. That's what it's all about, right? So whether or not he's a creep is immaterial in their minds, and he is pretty creepy, right? But they're doing this as a protest to the establishment. They are pissed off against the establishment. They're pissed off against the deep state, the uniparty state. We saw this, the first time around.
The Green Party state?
No, the uniparty state.
Oh, uniparty.
We saw this back in 2016, right? People who couldn't vote for Bernie Sanders didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. A lot of them went and voted for Donald Trump. Americans are pissed off. We also have to remember that people like Donald Trump are a byproduct of America, right? So that's, again, why we have to kind of change our value system too. And if you were to take like an Airbnb tour through his mind, I'm sure you'd sit there, you'd see like a weird little kid going, what did I do wrong? I did everything that, I was raised to do, get the big house, get the beautiful child bride and the money and all that other nonsense, right? We have to change what we value.
Let's ask the question. Let's ask the dreaded question. Is Donald Trump the finest American who has ever lived? Is he the best we have to offer in the United States? Is he the apex of all things intellectual, all things cultural, a man about town? Is he a man with swagger, joie de vivre? Is he debonair? Is he like the greatest of the... Would the founding fathers all sit around and go, God damn it, we missed the point? There it is. That is the man we want, wielding 10,500 multi-tip thermonuclear warheads. That's the man we want to run and make decisions on behalf of vulnerable people. This is the greatest thing, the greatest thinker, the greatest mind. And so what if his grandfather ran a whorehouse? So what? This is where he learned about women and how to treat them. Like, is this the greatest guy who ever lived? Because he says he is. And why would he lie? The Supreme Court, Scrotus, has just declared that he is immune.
Right. Again, that's a lot to think about. But I try not to think about Donald Trump too much. I got my own problems up here. But the Democrats essentially brought this on themselves too. They had every chance to make the decisions that they needed to make to keep this man from being in office, and they don't want to do it. We saw this back in 2016 and 2020. Every poll, everyone said the only person who could beat Donald Trump was Bernie Sanders. But of course, the establishment didn't want him getting in there and actually making changes that would cost those people money, so they railroaded him out. So now, that we've got to reckon with the likes of Donald Trump. And people like Donald Trump can only get to the places they are because they're the ones with the money, because the rest of America is just fighting for their lives every day and to stay off the street. So we have to change this.
This is a call to action for all of us, whatever anyone believes. I'm an independent because I just want the best person. I no longer believe in a Democrat or a Republican. As Noam Chomsky said, they're Demikins and Republicrats. So, and as you said, Bianca, it's a uniparty. It's silly. It's nonsense. The Democrats tend to be Republicans. They're just delay it by 6 months. That's all it is. Just delay it by 6 months. And they all feed off the same trough, a parliament of whores, as P.J. O'Rourke famously wrote in the late 1980s. Of course, he's been banned because he was funny. And we can't have funny anymore either. No humor. Right, Rory?
Right.
I was a little too sedate. I was expecting more fanfare.
Universal health care. We can.
Right.
Well, this has been great. I feel enlightened. I feel wonderful. And I thank you for the award. And it's just, what are we going to do? Except we got to fight. We have to remember that the country looks the way it does because we let it. Accountability. We let it happen. We sat and did nothing. I supported Bernie. I was out there, even with Dick Van Dyke. We were all out there in LA. I had friends of mine driving him around, but I did not vote for Donald Trump. That's for goddamn sure. I did not. Absolutely not. No way. So I am not that stupid. I might be upset with the system, but I am not going to commit suicide to make the system better and then not be around to enjoy it. Because it's bad, making it double bad doesn't somehow make it good, like two bads make an excellent. No, it doesn't work mathematically and it doesn't work politically. John says exactly the same blur in Australia between the left and right side of politics are essentially the same party treading water while the population drowns. God, these are pithy sentences.
And the
Why can't we say
they
it
just
like
get
that?
older. Here's the deal. All right, the politicians they just get older. And that's how it is.
Is that George Bush? That sounds like George Bush.
George is old. Old is normal.
Old is unfortunately becoming normal.
Grandpa.
That's called the gerontocracy, and that's thanks to Proposition 13. But the good news is we can do something within 24 hours because hopefully as many of your viewers know, tomorrow is Super Tuesday, the March 5th primary, and in California and San Francisco, voting has already started. So you can mail in your ballot. Even if you voted for someone, you can go in and change your vote. You can change your ballot. So please remember to vote. If help us. We hire 500 at-risk and BIPOC youth from West Oakland and the Hunters View, Bay Point areas of San Francisco. If you can donate, please donate the maximum $3,300. Every $2,100 we get allows us to train 25 kids for a whole weekend. So we are making changes up here. Call your friends in San Francisco. Get up on social media. Tell them to vote for Bianca Von Krieg. Tell them to vote for change, to change the system, to take the head of this god-awful monster off. We have to help these people. We have to do change. Now is the time. This person's never going to leave office. They're going to go there until they die. So we have to make the change now. You go to our social media.
And we need people to read. If you haven't ever read 1984 before, you must read it. It is required reading now. You must read Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. It is required reading. And then read some P.G. Wodehouse for a laugh. But seriously, you've got to start to read this stuff.
With Richard Burton.
Yeah. Yes. These are the manuals, the instruction manuals of how and where it goes if you do nothing. These were written 1984 was written in 1948, and it was supposed to happen by 1984. And here it is, 2024. And we're sitting in a surveillance system where we're monitored voluntarily. Come on, let's be honest, voluntarily. Alexa, what time is it?
And even more recently, we have the Hunger Games, right? That should resonate with a lot of your viewers too. We
Yeah.
have to make those changes. We're going to be talking to the people of San Francisco tonight on our social media. I think it's Generation Revolt. It's substack.com. generationrevolt.substack.com. You can find us on our social media. Search Bianca Von Krieg. You'll find our social media links. We have a link tree. You can find it through our website. Get on it. Encourage your friends and family up here to vote. Do what you can. Call the local media up here. We're already getting some traction from the networks. We are going to make this change, and it's extremely possible that we'll be making it to the general election because of our support from the Republicans, the progressives in the city, and the LGBT community. That should be enough to put us over the top. But we really want to go over the top. We want to get this thing ready for the general election, to take this person down, to take down this uniparty state, and that's who this person is. And anybody who believes differently, all you have to do is just look at her record. What has she done in 40 years? And nobody can say anything. You know, if she tries to take credit for Obamacare, you know, she had 2 supermajorities before that to do something about it, and she did nothing.
Well, that was Rahm Emanuel, though. He's the one that drove the stake in that, and then became mayor of Chicago and drove that into the toilet. So there's just stinky politicians. Doesn't matter what party anymore. You and I, we have to wake up. We have to wake up. We have to act like Gandhi. We have to stop pulling salt out of the caverns, and we have to decide to make the world that we want to live in. And if that means doing it in your own neighborhood and letting it metastasize into the rest of the world, by God, do it. But remember, your elected representatives work for you. They are your cleaning lady, not the other way around. They are working there for you. So you have to force them. You like Europeans. Do you think European leaders can get away with this shit? No way. People take to the streets, but we're busy, you know, not all of us, but a whole lot of us. And I watch Netflix too, I admit it, but I wait until later at night. If it's daytime, I will fucking go out in the streets with you. I will march, as I did in LA. We put on a parade for world peace. We brought in the surviving grandson of Mahatma Gandhi, our own Gandhi. This was back during the Bush-Cheney years. And we got 10,000 listeners. Imagine, back when radio was listenable. And we got them to march down Hollywood Boulevard. We took over the streets. We ended up at CNN. Why would we end up at CNN? Because CNN would not come down the elevator and outside and check out 10,000 people front-loaded with movie stars without having the movie stars at the front. We even threw a bucket of water on the titties of Daryl Hannah so that they would come down the elevator. That's what it took to get CNN, the most trusted name in news, to get in the goddamn elevator and come down to the street. But that's good old-fashioned, God damn it, the voice of the people. So get off your ass. God, I feel like what was the network? Like Ned Beatty, not in the pig scene from Deliverance.
That is not, I can't take it. I'm mad as hell. I can't take it anymore.
Peter Finch.
Peter Finch. Now I want to look at box number 4, which is Renee. I want to see Renee. Renee is a goddess extraordinaire. Renee is the producer-trix. She is the technical director of this show. She is amazing and profound, and I have failed to acknowledge her to the degree that she has earned. This silent worker bee, buzzing in the hive, going in each of the little combs in the honeycomb, which covered in sticky, sappy molasses-like honey. Her wings are stuck to her body and she's wiggling. It's terrible.
It's from all the circumcisions. That's the stickiness.
Exactly.
Where'd that come from?
Let's blame her for that, shall we? Let's thank Bianca Von Krieg. Wish you all the best. Anybody out there fighting up a half of the humans gets golf claps.
Golf clap.
Because we need it today. And thank you guys for giving. This is so much fun.
It is. And I want to say something, Cary, because I've been going out also to protest and to march, and not that many people go out there, especially in New York in the winter. A lot of people say, well, they can do this on social media. But I will tell you, when you get out there and you're holding a sign and you get to talk to other people in real life, and you can wear your mask if you want to, it's okay. But you're outside, it's okay. But, you know, people are honking and people will roll down their windows and argue with you or say, yeah, it's an experience that is unlike being on social media. So I want to say what Cary's saying. Please, people, get out from behind the computer. The computers are great. It's in both and. Do both. But to be mobilized and to be visible, that's the stuff that gets more attention, I think, because everybody's a keyboard warrior these days.
Right. And the fact is you get what you give. And if you give nothing, then you cannot complain that you're a victim of it. Just like the Germans in World War II, they're now reframing a lot of World War II history as though they were occupied by the Nazis. This is a kind of special genius. Well, yes, they came in and they took over and they did this and that. And
the greatest PR trick of all time. The greatest PR trick of all time.
Yeah, it's just great. But that's what's happening here now. It's the same. It's just inverted. So stay awake, ask questions, talk to each other. And remember, we are all Americans and we are all equals. Maybe it doesn't play out that way, but we really are all equals. Let's all be Americans together. Let's flush the toilet of nonsense and have a beautiful Japanese toilet once again.
Agreed.